half in the bag.
Oh, God damn it.
We're almost out of Germ-X. What are we gonna do?
I can't believe the CDC says we have to go back to wearing masks indoors, even if we're vaccinated.
Yep, we're back to this shit again. I call it deja flu. That's right, I just coined that term. And don't you try to use it, major cable news outlets. I'm watching ya, and so's my lawyers!
Who are you talking to? Whatever, but you're vaccinated, right?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, me too. And with the real deal, not the fake shit you were trying to sell at your fraudulent pop-up vaccination clinic.
I'll admit, Jay, that wasn't my best scam, but how was I supposed to know that vaccines were free? I mean, at that point, I had 20,000 fake doses and a line of people around the block. What was I supposed to do?
Maybe tell people just to go home?
I'm sure all those people that I injected with a placebo are doing just fine, Jay. But let's not lose sight of what's the most important thing, us.
That's right, Mike. It just sucks that I finally got used to not wearing a mask, and now I have to wear one again.
Well, that's not entirely true. Some places now require masks again if you're vaccinated, and some don't. Some require masks only if you're unvaccinated, while some require just half of a mask if you've only received one shot.
Which half?
The left half.
So, what if I'm in, like, Target? Do I have to wear a mask there?
Well, it depends.
On what?
On where the Target's located and what your county's current risk assessment level is, also known as RAL.
Huh?
Here, take a look at this handy interactive map. This might help.
Oh God, no.
Light orange levels 1A and B do not require masks inside retail establishments with the subcategories A, B, and C. Category D are bars and restaurants. They do require masks when walking inside and to your table, but when at your table, you're free to remove your mask while eating, drinking, and coughing on the people that you're with. Medium orange color levels 3A and 3B to light red colors 3A to 3C do not require masks in retail establishments in categories A, B, and C, but do require them in categories D.
And what are categories A, B, and C again?
Category A are outdoor events, concerts, beaches, kite flying competitions,
What?
Outdoor dining where the tables are at least 6.3 feet apart.
What?
Category B are larger retail outlets like big box chains, Targets, Walmarts, grocery stores, etc., but only if the store is at least 20,000 square feet. If it falls below that, then it's in a category in between B and C called B1.6. Consult your local store directory on the store square footage. Category C is just indoor skydiving. Nobody really knows what to do with that.
So, let's say I'm in a mild risk zone, say dark orange to light red. I'm wearing a mask, and I want to go into a place that's in the category of B1.6.
Well, it depends on the state, the county, the type of mask you're wearing, and the current status of the legal action against the regulations.
Wait, type of mask? Why, I usually just wear my trusty old blue surgical mask that's falling off my face that I can easily breathe through.
Oh, silly Jay. Light blue surgery masks are so first half of 2021. They don't protect against any of the new variants.
What do you mean, new variants?
Oh yeah, the Delta variant is 10 times more contagious than regular COVID, and Delta Plus, 100 times more contagious than the Delta variant.
But what about the Delta Burke variant?
And don't even get me started on the Lambda variant. I'm never going into Target again.
So, what happened to the variants of Beta, Gamma?
Oh, those are all out there too. And they've all mutated into their own plus variants.
I have COVID! What kind of COVID? All the COVIDs!
Regular?
Yes. Delta?
Yeah!
Delta plus?
Yes!
Epsilon Zeta?
Yes!
Not Omega?
Yes! I tested positive for all of the variants! That's what the medical professional said at the Piggly Wiggly.
Oh, well, I mean, you were vaccinated, right?
What? Oh, I don't believe in the COVID vaccine. But I have been vaccinated for measles, mumps, rubella, shingles.
Jay, if this is true, and Mr. Plinkett does have all the COVID variants, his body will most likely mutate them into the most dangerous variant of them all, the Omega plus variant. It's resistant to any known vaccine and is 100 billion times more contagious than any disease ever known to mankind.
Where'd you get this information?
BuzzFeed.
Well, I'm off to a crowded concert venue where nobody is wearing masks.
Hold it right there, you prick.
Should we just shoot him?
No, if he survives, his body will produce antibodies, which will be very useful to scientists. And by very useful, I mean we can sell them to scientists.
Oh, right.
Don't shoot, don't shoot. I've got so many years to live.
Jay, go get the duct tape. And as for you, sit down in your fucking wheelchair, you prick motherfucker.
Look, I don't know who you are, but this might be my only chance to see BTS, EXO, GOT7, Monsta X, TVXQ, and NCTU all on one big stage, and I'm not gonna miss it.
What the hell is all that? Are those some kind of new COVID variants?
No, it's K-pop. It's kind of my new thing.
K-pop? What the fuck is K-pop? What? Come here, you prick! Oh, you get in that fucking wheelchair!
I'm not getting in no fucking wheelchair! Oh! Oh!
You son of a...
Oh my God! I'm surprisingly spry for a man with all of the COVID!
I'm gonna hit you with the TV unless you get in the fucking wheelchair! Look out! Come here, you!
Oh, stop it! Stop it right now, God damn it! God, when I get out of here, I'm gonna give you so much COVID.
Great. Now we just wait for him to get really sick, recover, and then we can sell his antibodies to Joe Biden.
Mike, he's 117 years old. Do you really think he's gonna recover from the most deadly... Oh, what am I doing? What does it matter? I can't believe this is my life. There really is only one solution.
No, wait. Speaking of suicide, have you seen Space Jam: A New Legacy?
Those tickets were non-refundable. You'll pay for this, you prick.
Robert Dubois. He's in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
The Suicide Squad is back! In the world's shortest wait time between a franchise reboot. Or is it actually a sequel? Either way, this Suicide Squad doesn't feel like it was edited by an algorithm that's on the fritz. Harley Quinn's back. Some guy named Rick Flag's back. And James Gunn is back after being Twitter canceled.
I might dispute your accusation that this is the world's fastest reboot. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man into the, what's that little kid's name? The little
Tom
boy.
Holland?
Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Ooh, yeah.
Wasn't that like 18 to 20? Like, wasn't that like 17, 18 with Andrew Garfield and then 2019? Wasn't it like a year later or like a week later?
I don't know. We'll have to do some calculations and some deep diving, and we'll put the results here on the time between Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man Homecoming.
Right.
It's probably comparable to this. The bigger question is, how pissed off is David Ayer right now?
I think he's probably a little annoyed.
Studio took his movie, Warner Brothers took his movie, and just shoved it into a blender in an attempt to please nobody.
They also shoved it into a blemmer.
A blemmer. I had a Rich Evans moment there.
It's worse than a blender.
And then he sees this, and it's like, oh, they let James Gunn just make a James Gunn movie with seemingly no interference. Or if there is any, it's very minor.
Yeah, well, that was a trending Twitter thing, released the Ayer cut following the success.
Yeah.
Admitted success. I enjoyed the Snyder cut much, much, much more than the studio butcher job. And then David Ayer had a statement where he's like, I wrote a film with intriguing, depthful characters, with amazing arcs and thoughtful this and that and blah, 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 blah.
I think at the very least, the Ayer cut would be better than the theatrical cut, even if it's not very good. Maybe it's okay, I don't know, but...
I'm not a huge fan of his. I like the movie with the tank in it. And
oh yeah, the Brad Pitt movie?
Yeah, that was good, but I did not like the movie with the cops in it. I didn't know anything about David Ayer, so I was surprised to read his like kind of rough backstory and upbringing. And the original Suicide Squad, not so good. James Gunn, a better fit.
Yes,
and we'll discuss that now on our program.
My VCR almost fixed.
I don't have a lot to say about this. It's very James Gunn. It does feel like the studio kind of left him alone. It feels very different. I mean, compare this to some of the recent Marvel movies. This is miles better. I never thought we'd get to that point.
This is like the Suicide Squad is interesting because it is a whole different kind of tonal nightmare that you have to have all these well-balanced ingredients put into it in the right amounts in order to make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, you got something like the Avengers, right? Superheroes, and they all got their own thing, but they're all generally good superheroes. And you can throw some light humor in there, kind of poke fun at it, but also take it seriously. And then the Marvel's found that formula pretty well. DC has struggled.
That's the nicest possible way to put it.
Yeah, they went for the more darker route. And that's something like I just didn't like about that original Suicide Squad movie. I think it just took itself too seriously.
It was weird. And it also didn't really live up to the concept. The whole idea of the Suicide Squad is they're a group of basically expendable like thugs and lowlifes that they're just taken advantage of and put into these situations because if they die, it doesn't really matter.
With superpowers.
With superpowers,
for the
sure.
most part.
Yeah. And that first movie, none of them really had superpowers in that first movie, did they? There was the guy who looked like a crocodile. That was kind of it. But they're all, it's like, I remember that was my big complaint about that movie. It was like, what's Harley Quinn with a bat gonna do against these supernatural beings? There's like a witch lady at the end of that movie. And this movie is a better fit of like, this is the type of mission you send these types of characters on.
Right.
Everything about the concept works so much better in this movie than in the last one.
When you throw these comic book characters into something like the Suicide Squad, the David Ayer one, and David Ayer obviously, you know, he did End of Watch and the Tank movie and other things, and he's a little darker.
Yeah.
He's not goofy.
Yes.
And that's probably why all the characters in that one didn't have wacky superpowers.
He didn't want to get too goofy or weird.
He didn't want to use Polka Dot Man. Okay? and this kind of subject matter needs Polka Dot Man.
Yes. Well, the nice thing about, and I think it works better in this, I like the Guardians movies more in general, but this movie finds a better balance of, yes, there's goofy shit like Polka Dot Man, but Polka Dot Man himself isn't a joke. The movie never goes like, and that's something about the Marvel formula that started to wear on me is there's always that winking like, I can't believe we got a big green monster working for us. There's that like winking it like we know this is silly to the audience. And this is more of like, it's just embracing the weirdness of these characters. I mean, that's James Gunn's strength, is just sort of taking the characters seriously. And he does that even with the most bizarre of characters.
Yes.
And he balances that really well in this, I think.
Yes, that was one of the ingredients for this movie. Watching this, it felt like I was watching a big double, triple issue comic book of this big storyline, right? It felt more like a weird comic book storyline than it did a movie. And I enjoyed that. And I was like, and like you said, it took the character seriously, because people who wrote those comic books with these bizarre characters it wasn't like a gag. They were taking it seriously to a degree. And that's the magic, is like, you gotta, one, they're all bad guys, right? So they all have their own issues. They've committed crimes or whatever. They're not necessarily like psychopaths or like awful people, but...
Except for the weasel.
Except for the weasel, yeah.
Hey, he's not a werewolf, okay? He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know, we got him to... I think he's agreed to do this.
You have to make them likable, right? You have to give them all their proper screen time and backstory, which was accomplished.
Yes.
And you have to have a interesting storyline with some nice twists and turns that doesn't devolve. I mean, this did devolve into them fighting a big bad guy at the end, but it didn't feel like a villain of the week.
There's nothing generic about
Steppenwolf-esque. I couldn't remember anything about Suicide Squad, so I went back and I scrubbed through it. And I got to the end, and they were fighting somebody like who looked just like Steppenwolf. It was a monster.
I just remember the witch lady.
There was a witch lady. I saw the witch lady, and I thought she was a part of the team.
She was, and then she turned bad.
Okay, and then I get to the end, and there's like a monster in that Steppenwolf armor, and everybody's fighting him. And I was like, I will never remember that, but I will always remember a giant intergalactic starfish.
Yes.
Smashing up a small town.
Who emits tiny starfish from his armpit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was just this bizarro twist, and that is probably a real comic book villain or storyline. Same with all of the sub-characters.
I was wondering about that, because we recommend this movie, I guess, before we start talking about spoilers.
Yeah.
We would both recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Spoilers.
That's what you guys do all day?
The opening of the movie, the first 15, 20 minutes is a giant misdirect. All these characters that we are introduced to that are actually built up better than characters that last entire movies in some of these types of movies. They all get killed. They're the diversion, and then we follow the real team. So I was wondering, like, if comic book fans would be pissed. Are these real characters that they're killing off? Is anyone going to be mad about this? I don't know. It works in service of the story.
It goes on a gradient, Jay. People get mad about they destroyed the character from Black Widow. The Mimic.
I've already forgotten because that movie was so generic.
It was a guy who could mimic anyone's fighting style.
And in this movie, it's just generic character in suit that turns out to be a lady.
Yeah. Who did some of the mimicking qualities of that character, but it was a gender swap, so, I guess everyone was angry about that. Who was angry and who holds that character in such high regard?
And why?
Yeah, but no, I Googled Polka Dot Man. Yes, real character.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I wanted to bring this up very quickly. I don't listen to podcasts a lot, but I was listening to the NPR podcast Planet Money, right? And there's a kind of a famous series of, I think there's 3 parts to it, or maybe 2 parts. It's called Planet Money Buys a Superhero. And it was they started off the podcast with this mission to purchase, they said, we have a briefcase full of $10,000, and we're going to purchase a superhero from Marvel. And because
the rights to it?
The rights to it, yes.
Okay.
They wanted to see if they could. And Marvel has, in their vault, underground in a bomb shelter, they have the rights to over 7,000 superhero characters. There are superhero characters that go back to the golden age of comics when they just were cranking them out.
Sure.
Superheroes everywhere. Only 1% of them became iconic. Spider-Man's, Thor's, Captain America, Hulk's, whatever.
Yeah.
Batman's. I don't want to leave out the DC verse. Batman, Superman's.
Batmite, of course.
Who's that?
He's a little like flying Batman.
Oh.
Looks like a little bug.
Well, that's my point. Is,
There's a ton of those.
yeah, and so they did some. They attempted to contact Marvel, and everything just failed.
Sure.
And the comic book expert guy comes in, and he's like, yeah, they're never going to sell you anything, because something like Groot, a rare, obscure character, became a merchandising explosion.
It's funny, I look at him, you know what I see? Dolls with suction cups staring out car windows.
So they've got them all tucked away in their back pocket. You never know when you're going to need one. So there's, Polka Dot Man, right? It's in their archive. So the Planet Money guys went and they did some more research, and they discovered early on in the 1940s, during the big comic book boom, the copyright laws were different. And a lot of characters around that time, the copyright law only went for 28 years. So characters created in the 40s and 50s, the copyright would have expired in the 70s, and a lot of these places didn't renew the copyright contracts. So they picked out a random comic book character called Microface, a superhero with a face with a microphone mouth that could shoot sound waves out of his mouth.
When you said Microface, I was thinking of the villain from Dick Tracy with the tiny face.
No. And so they're like, it was in the public domain. All these comic book characters had fallen off into the public domain.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, well, okay, let's take Microface, and we're going to just take it. Because you could.
Yeah.
And so Planet Money took this character named Microface, and they hired an artist. They got the blessing from the daughter of the original creator, and they made the comic book. They have a T-shirt, and he's become like this like logo for them.
Huh.
So it's interesting. There's probably a well of characters that goes 10 miles deep, all stored somewhere. And I think, I don't know, part of me thinks if this movie is really popular and successful, that could be kind of like a new phase that comic books can go into, because we're getting another fucking Batman with Robert Pattinson now.
Yeah, another Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, and then it's like, I'm so much more excited about Polka Dot Man.
It's just a rash.
That's a rash.
His mother, he had an oppressive mother who was a scientist who injected all of her children with a space virus. And every day he has to spew out colorful polka dots out of his face.
His face swells up. It's like body horror when his face was swelling up and glowing.
And his polka dots he shoots would like melted people. And he was like depressed, and he just wanted to die.
Yeah, that's so much more, it's refreshing to see something so different, like when you just see Batman over and fucking over.
Exactly, and that's the magic of the Suicide Squad, I think, in future films is
just keep digging up all these obscure characters.
Viola Davis has prisons everywhere, I guess, that have captured all these obscure villainous characters, and she can just continue to use them.
Yeah.
Maybe not her anymore. Maybe the lady who hit her with a golf club is going to take over now. We're going to have a more sensitive Suicide Squad leadership.
Oh, okay.
It's a little less.
She was really intense in this movie, more so than what I remember from the last movie. They made her
too wrapped up in her job.
Yeah, they made her like a full-blown villain.
Yeah, and that was another magical thing with this movie, was that it wasn't very like nihilistic or dark or these were the most superhero-ish characters that I've seen in a while. A tortured, multifaceted, questionably ethical character is always more dynamic and depthful than a Superman.
That's true.
Or a Captain America. They tried to implement some of that drama with the Civil War, whether or not him and Tony Stark disagreed, and
it's fine. I like that stuff
to a certain degree, but
it's just at this point in the endless cycle of comic book movies, that's tired. I'm done with that. Yeah. Black Widow was like, I am done with this shit.
That was some kind of...
It just feels so stale at this point.
It feels like a fork in the road.
Yeah.
This Suicide Squad movie feels like some kind of shift, at least for me, for my own personal tastes.
Sure.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the creativity. I didn't find it as like funny as other James Gunn stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was going for that intentionally. It's not as jokey as the Guardians movies,
and that's
which
good.
is fine. Yeah,
it's interesting because this James Gunn came from Marvel over to DC after he got canceled for something. I don't even know what.
He got canceled for 10-year-old offensive jokes.
For being James Gunn.
It was funny because when that was all happening and people were like, look at these horrible, like, he's making jokes about child molestation and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, I've been following this guy's fucking career since he worked for Troma. This is not shocking in the least.
Right.
But all these people that only know him for Marvel movies were like, what is this? And there was a political angle to it, too, of course, which we don't have to go into all that. But
yeah.
he was kind of a blabbermouth about politics on Twitter, so people wanted to shut him up about that, and it became a whole thing. So you dig up the old tweets, that old playbook.
But yeah, so he moved from Marvel to DC, and then the DC fan base seems to like the darker, more serious stuff. So they probably said, hey, when you write your script, make it funny, but don't make it too funny.
I mean, it's funny without trying to be funny a lot of the times. Like the idea of Polka Dot Man. Like it's such an absurd concept that you play it straight, and that makes it almost funnier. But it's interesting because this feels like they mostly left him alone. And it's rated R, which I was excited about because I like James Gunn's earlier stuff. And this is like the kind of movie he would be making, even if it wasn't attached to $1 billion IP. It just feels like a James Gunn movie. Yeah. Which is great that he's managed to. I mean, I know he wrote those Scooby-Doo movies, but you know, you got to pay the bills somehow. But all the stuff he's like written and directed himself, like you can see a through line from those early like Troma stuff to this, where it's like, man, being able to navigate that in like Hollywood and do these big movies and still have a voice shine through is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Just like the lady that directed Black Widow.
I guess it helps that James Gunn has a goofy style to begin with. And he was writing comic book shit before the Marvel cycle even started. He wrote a movie, this reminded me a lot of, he didn't direct it, but he wrote a movie called The Specials, which is about like the 6th or 7th most popular superhero team. And it just takes place in this house where they all live. And they're just like arguing all the time.
Unfortunately, the same chemicals that gave him his superpowers gave him a type of mouth cancer. And he was dead in 6 months. The same thing happened to Captain Elastic, Flagpole Lad.
Gooey Stan.
Like a holocaust of rubbery people.
It's not a great movie, it's not very well directed, but
yeah.
This reminded me of that too. So it's like, you know, and then Super, of course, with Rainn Wilson. Like,
right.
Which, I guess we're in spoilers, we can talk about this. Pete Davidson shows up at the beginning of this movie and we were like, oh. But then, it's so fucking satisfying when his face gets blown off.
Spoilers.
And it happens exactly like at the end of Super, when Elliot Page's face gets blown off. It's like the exact same visual.
There's that one shot where the starfish buzz pulled the person's face off.
Yeah, that was pretty grotesque. Like, grotesque without being gratuitous, the gore in this. It has these like moments, just these like, you know, it's almost like the, what do they call that? The splash page in a comic book panel where you have the big action moment. It does that with gore in this, but it's never like too gratuitous.
This is boring. God, this is so boring.
It feels like it earns that ending, a big monster destroying the city ending. It felt so old-fashioned.
Yeah, because there aren't any giant set pieces.
No, it's all very, there's the part when they are trying to rescue Joel Kinnaman, which is kind of a misdirect. It turns out that those were the good guys, so they just fucking murdered them all. Harley Quinn breaking out of the prison, I thought was really well executed.
Yeah, that was a fun sequence.
There's something about the camera work, and I'm not sure how to like describe it properly, where it was like really jerky but controlled, where it would be like, it would swish around and then it would feel like it stopped suddenly. And then it would swish around to another angle and stop suddenly. It was very, I don't know how to describe it, but it was very like intentional. It was very stylized in a way where it wasn't just I don't know. I just think of like those Marvel movies and how it's dictated by the visual effects artists, and it's like we talked about with Black Widow. It's like you come up with the action scenes first and work a story around it.
Right.
Here, this was just a movie that someone wrote the script and they shot the script, that all the action makes sense within the story.
There was action, like you know, there's the part where obviously the opening is a big action sequence, and then there's a lot of character stuff, and then there's they kind of, there's some, like, I don't know, gun battle stuff, the Harley Quinn thing, but there's no like gigantic, you know, city crushing set piece, right?
Yeah.
And in the old school method of movie making, like you said, it's earned. That's why it was like, the ending felt great, because all those characters, all these different team members, we learned a lot about them, all their little quirks, their powers, their motivations, because there's the John Cena character, and the Idris Elba character, and they're sort of like, they're similar but different.
You just said each member of the team is chosen for their unique abilities. He does exactly what I do.
But better.
I always hit my targets dead center.
I hit them more in the center.
You can't hit something more in the center?
I use smaller bullets.
What?
And so it all comes to like a boiling point, and it becomes this big, like, well-earned, paid-off, gigantic monster set piece that feels so much better than Monster with horns in a suit of armor, right? Who has shown up 3 times throughout the film and done battle with the heroes and then flown away, only to show up at the end. Maybe he even has a bigger monster behind him. So, creativity, good characterization, heroic characters. I'm rooting for our heroes at the end, even though they accidentally murdered 30 people, 30 innocent good guys. At the end, it doesn't matter, because they decide to do the right thing. Even Harley Quinn. I like that the nihilism and gross, dark, dirty, like, is sucked out, and I felt that these were superheroes, because I think that's the final. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think that's
we're already in spoilers.
The final line of one of the characters. I'll say that. This character yells, "I'm a superhero!
Gotta go to the bathroom!"
Before something bad happens, and so that just worked out so well.
I said I gotta go to the bathroom! Never mind.
Jay, let's talk about music, okay? We're gonna talk about music.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, obviously James Gunn likes music. The Guardians movies, it's mostly like 70s and 80s kind of radio hits. This is a little more eccentric.
Yeah. So this opens with Johnny Cash, you know, the Jim Carroll Band song. There's a lot of music. There's a Pixie song.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously James Gunn loves putting music in his films, not just score, but pop songs from all eras.
Yeah.
That's what Guardians is all about. The Guardians mixtape, music, incredibly effective use. And so that ultimately made me feel cringy when I went back and looked at Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like...
Well, that movie, the first Suicide Squad movie, is like a new song every 5 seconds.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
That was, they were trying to make the movie like a trailer.
It's a misuse of that wonderful skill.
Yeah.
Or
knowing what songs to use, when to use them,
yes,
why to use them.
It just felt like an algorithm plugged it in and said, we have the rights to this song for this long, and it just didn't feel right.
It was just music shoved into, like, because you remember the song. It was like, what are those CDs? Like, wow, this is music.
That's what I call music.
That's what I call music.
Volume 238.
They just grabbed a couple of those off the shelf and threw them into the editing bay.
And it's not like there were contemporary songs or what was popular on the radio at the time the movie came out. I mean, obviously Queen's, that song's old, but it just felt more calculated and corporate-y and less like organic and soulful.
Yeah.
Like James Gunn feels like, oh, this song would work perfect in this sequence.
Yeah.
And it feels like someone picked that. That melding, I remember I think we noted this in our Half in the Bag review, and others obviously picked up on this too, but when Suicide Squad, the 2016 one, first started releasing trailers and advertising stuff, the logo progressively got more colorful.
Yeah.
Over time, and I think we did a comparison, and it kind of felt like by the end of that, they were like, oh God, this should be more like a Marvel thing, and we got this David Ayer guy who, is standing around like, is probably smoking, going, life is miserable. And oh God, we should have got James Gunn.
I want to use nothing but Public Enemy songs.
Right.
What? In our comic book movie?
Fuck the police. And then they're like, oh, well, just shove Queen in there in the beginning and it'll make it work.
Yeah.
It'll make it poppy. Add more color to the logo. And you just got that creepy, like, cringy vibe that the studio's trying to change that into something else.
Yeah, which you can't do with a movie that's already been shot and designed to be one thing.
You can try.
Well, the result is that first Suicide Squad movie. We've seen what happens.
It's just like, what are you doing? How could everybody drop the ball so badly?
Yeah.
Like you hire David Ayer, you're gonna get a product.
It's weird though, like DC keeps trying to change the types of movies they were doing. At the time they hired him, that was when they were still like knee deep in the Zack Snyder-y, dark, gritty, taking it very, so that's kind of what they wanted. And then when those movies weren't, connecting with people the way they hoped that they would, then it's like, oh, this Guardians of the Galaxy are popular, so let's rechange the movie that's already been shot to make it more like that. DC was like constantly trying to change courses in the middle of production of things. And now it seems like they're more kind of leaning towards just like leaving the filmmakers alone. Because like the Shazam movie, like that, the David Sandberg movie, just feels like a David Sandberg movie.
Joker,
of course,
yeah.
And then this, so.
Yeah. Doom Patrol, which is a show. I haven't watched like any of the other crap from DC. There's
sure.
Teen Titans, like live action. I'm like, Batwoman, or
yeah.
There's a bunch of shows. I've watched Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol's really good, and it's also kind of misfitty, obscure characters. So I don't know.
I think if that's the route they want to take now, like less of trying to capture the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff and just making individual movies that are all their own kind of distinct thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go, and that's the way to be distinct from Marvel and not just constantly fall on your face.
Yeah, DC was trying to do the Marvel thing. Like at the end of Suicide Squad, there's the trailer. It's funny, I wonder if you could add up how many like post-credit trailer things just never turned into anything. It's like Batman, Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck, Batman, not to be confused with 26 other Batman. He meets with Viola Davis and he's like, give me the files on all the people that will become the Justice League.
My friends and I will do it for you.
And then there's, what movie has the ending with like Lex Luthor and Deadshot?
That was the end of Justice League.
Was that Justice League?
Yeah.
Okay.
With Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello,
Yeah.
Buckshot, Deadshot, Shot Eye Shot, Bullseye, Eyeball, Bull Shot, Shot Bull, Shotgun, Shot By, Shot Dead, Eye Shot, Ear Shot, Dead Shot.
This goes back to what you were saying about all the old characters that have been ignored or forgotten about. You just described half of them.
The Monocle. That's like the world's first superhero.
The Monocle?
The Monocle. He's just like an old-timey guy, and he's got like a monocle from the future. Back when they thought monocles would be like consistent throughout time. And he has a monocle from the year 1996.
Oh, wow.
And he's flying around, running around the 1800s or 1700s with a monocle, and it has like super sight on it.
Can it see the future?
It can, yeah, it has multiple settings on it.
Oh, okay.
You can see the future, but only 10 seconds into the future. It's meant for watching theater plays. if you've missed a minute into the future. 2 minutes, because if you had to go use the gentleman's lounge.
Oh, sure.
The outhouse. During the theatrical play, you can watch the last 2 minutes while you were in the gentleman's lounge.
Man, Abe Lincoln really would have benefited from that thing.
I know. He left his monocle at home. Monocle Man was a little too late, but he had the monocle on, and he has like a Civil War rifle. Like one of those like muskets that just had horrible accuracy, and the monocle helps him. My monocle is telling me to aim my gunpowder musket 17 feet to the left, but my target is 17 feet to the right. Trust the monocle. It's from the year 1996, the future. And he fires and then ran over and he's killed the bad guy. Monocle Man!
Oh, it's a projectile too?
Yeah, little blades. I guess it comes back to him like Captain America or whatever. Like Boomerang.
Or Captain Boomerang.
Captain Boomerang.
Is that his name, Captain Boomerang?
I think so. I think so.
Doesn't matter, he's fucking dead.
He's dead. What was I going on? What was I talking about?
I don't know
when
anymore.
I started talking about Monocle Man.
You remember Night Court? I just wanted to watch Night Court.
Just shut up. We're trying to talk about a comic book movie over here.
I hear Night Court's coming back, but it's probably going to be woke.
But the standalone stuff, Shazam was great. That was so much fun. Joker, good in its own way. I like Doom Patrol a lot. There's no action in Doom Patrol ever. It's just fucking miserable, weird characters. And it's all just developing their characters throughout the whole show. Very little action, almost none. Bizarro, deep, bottom of the drawer superhero characters. And I think, to me, that is a much more palatable and interesting direction for me.
Sure.
Those types of stories. I really like that. Even if, like Polka Dot Man, right? I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here. Polka Dot Man probably wasn't a character in the comic books when he was originally created. Probably wasn't depressed and suicidal and hated his mother.
Sure.
Maybe not. But you can take an old property like Polka Dot Man and give him some kind of depthful, weird angle and make it super interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that I prefer.
Well, and that's what James Gunn did with the Guardians of the Galaxy. That wasn't a popular, now everybody loves it, but it wasn't a popular comic. Those characters weren't popular. And
I think this is very much exemplified in the fact that Marvel Phase 4 or 5, whatever we're on, which is sort of like a movie here or there mixed with TV shows. Haven't tuned into Loki, haven't tuned into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I did watch the WandaVision, which was an interesting take until it turned into a Marvel movie at the end.
Yeah. But that felt, I mean, it has the connections to the overall cinematic universe, but it still was telling its own story. It was about grief. It was about something.
Yes, yes.
So it still kind of felt isolated.
80% of it was very good.
Yeah.
That felt like a good step in the right direction, but it still was tied to that universe. And they're never going to branch off wildly because their cinematic universe has been way too successful.
Yeah.
And it's like Star Wars, where you've got that ingrained fan base that just won't budge.
Yeah.
And they'll watch Winter Soldier and Falcon and Loki, and you can make a show about any character and they'll watch it. I think I'm just burnt out on those characters. I think I want new characters.
Sure.
And I think that's what was so pleasant and refreshing with this James Gunn movie was that
characters that have new directions to go and grow as characters.
Right.
Like, because Marvel, they're introducing Shang-Chi and the Eternals, and it all just feels like like a variation on the same formula, as opposed to just like doing something wildly different.
Yeah, which would be financially too risky for them.
DC's in a place where they might as well try different things.
It's an expression, what is it? Don't get off a winning horse or something like that, right? There's horse like don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but I think there's like don't get off a winning horse. Like you're the Kentucky Derby and the horse is doing great, and then if you're crossing the stream with your horse and it's doing just fine, don't change horses midstream. That's the Marvel edict now, I'm sure. It's like, we've got all this, we've established our universe. It's set in stone, and now we can just.
And it was interesting and exciting to watch as it was building and happening. Yeah. But as we've said, after the Avengers, it's like, okay, we're done.
Endgame.
Now I want something different.
My VCR almost fixed. Do you remember that? Do you remember that story when that was a thing? Oh God, I'm starting to feel a little bit warm.